Okay. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Ramadan is just around the corner and it's a significant month for mankind. This month is called the month of the community. Unlike the usual month or usual days where an individual is isolated, even he can sit in his own house, he can be in the company but is in isolation. This month moves with a collective consciousness because everyone around the world is moving like a single body, a single collective consciousness moving towards a single pointed goal. And that goal is nothing but to please Allah, the Creator. And because of this power of this conscious movement, the collective movement, one is able to surmount obstacles or weaknesses they usually face, which in the usual days they are unable to surmount them. They fall into their weaknesses. But this month, what happens is they are able to overcome that because of this collective movement, I mean the conscious movement. So, for example, smokers find it very difficult to kick off that habit. But in Ramadan, they are able to stop smoking for that period. So there is some kind of power that allows for certain weaknesses to be surmounted. Now what is this? The Prophet ﷺ said that the devils are chained during this month. We understand from the spiritual perspective that when a prophet says something, it hits or touches different dimensions of thoughts. Because according to your perception, your viewpoint, you will find it according to a certain dimension. But if a person with unitary viewpoint, they will find it touches different subjects. So for example, 11th months, the mind is conditioning your body to a certain habit. For 11th months, you have been programmed towards a certain system. And then comes this 1 month where you have to break all patterns. And initially this becomes a bit difficult, but later on you find that it induces creativity and other forms of energies that seems to exude out from yourself. So what happens is the mind actually leads you on to a certain habits during all those 11 months. This mind is like a mirror. So everything we see, we touch, we smell, we hear is impressed upon it. And when it's impressed upon it, it reinforces, re-establishes and recreates again and again those things that is impressed, that becomes your habit. Until to the extent that it starts to program your system, and you don't realize that actually it's something like an artificial intelligence, that like a machine that goes on and on without you actually being conscious of it. For example, let's say I have a competition, the boxing match in a ring. I'm not so confident about my skill sets, and the opponent is very threatening. So what happens that even before the match starts, when you are sleeping, the mind starts to reinforce your fears. So as you start to reinforce fears after fears after fears, the chances of you losing that match might be 70 to 60%. So in that same way, I can have positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement, and this month aims to break all those reinforcements. Now, why am I talking about mind rather than the body? Fasting is supposed to be something to do with the body, right? The physical constitution. But I'm talking about the mind, because if you really think about it, you are more into the mind rather in your body. Am I right? You are more in your mind, and the mind is conditioning that body. So when you look into Surah Baqarah, ayat 183, Allah talks about this fasting of Ramadan. Allah says that we have prescribed for you this fast, just like we have prescribed fast for the nations before you, so that it may lead you to God consciousness, taqwa. So there is a link between fasting and consciousness, which is your mind, isn't it? Why did God talk about other previous nations? So we know in Christians there is Lent fasting, the Jews have their own fastings, and the yogis and the Vedics have their own, the Buddhists have their own fasting. Some are vegetarian fasting, some are water fasting. So there are different kind of fasting. But what can we learn from other nations? Because Allah mentioned, He is the one who sent to different nations the prescription of fasting. So Allah is not a God of a certain language, He is not God of a certain race, not God of a certain geographical location, or God of a certain culture. It was one primordial being that sent down all messages throughout time according to your situation and language and time, according to that period. So everything in time actually evolves to a certain stages of culmination, and the Ramadan was the culmination of all those fast, and it is for entire mankind, of course.